Welcome to the webinar today. Excited to have you here. My name is Mark Savar. I'm the Global Marketing Communications Manager here and am thrilled that you could join us. We've got a great education, inspiration, fact, um, background on our H3 Horizon 3.0 with StimGuide Pro system. So we're excited to have you here. We're going to get started in just a minute. Coming to you live from our headquarters here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, along with Joe Law. We have our North American headquarters here where we distribute throughout North America. But of course, our main office is in the UK. And I see we have many people coming in. There it is from the UK. I have more countries coming in. Very exciting. So, with that, we are going to get things moving because I'm a stickler for time. Quick legal statement. Just know that this is a general demonstration of Magstim technology. It's informational purposes only, does not cover all aspects. Please consult the website or user manuals for specific directions on the operations. And again, put your questions in the Q&A. We love good questions. So join in right there. With that, I'm going to get this moving. I'm going to invite our CEO, Ronnie Campo, to come on and say hello as well. Hello, Ronnie. How are you
Hi,
today?
Mark. Good morning. Good afternoon to everybody on the call. I'm doing well, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for putting this together. It looks like it's going to be another great global webinar. Thank you all for being here. I'm super excited that you joined us today. And as always, thank you to the researchers, clinicians, neuroscientists, and all of you who work to study and treat the brain. We at Magstim and our parent company, Welcony, are totally committed to supporting your work. And as Mark said, please reach into us with questions, comments, ideas on how to make things better. Right now, the scale of depression is massive in our world. The World Health Organization estimates that about 280 million people worldwide, or roughly 5% of adults, are living with depression at any given time. We know this incidence is even higher among some populations. Think about people in conflict areas, think about adolescents. It's just an epidemic worldwide. Only about 9% of people with major depressive disorder receive any treatment. So the vast majority is undertreated or untreated at all. 9 in 10 people with MDD do not get care. And that's due to access, cost, side effects of treatments, stigma, and limitations of medication-only pathways. So I really believe the time is now for non-invasive treatment. TMS is a proven guideline-supported technology. It's straightforward to integrate into your practice, so you can start offering precise, drug-free brain stimulation to the right patients in weeks, not years, and see results in weeks, not months. Some people report seeing results within days. Our H3 is the foundational flagship for our clinical TMS machine, and it is FDA and MDR cleared. Today, our team will share the simplicity of the StimGuide Pro workflow, as well as some updates and fast facts for those of you using the system or thinking about using the system. Please reach out. We're here to support your work to improve patients' lives. And with that, I would like to introduce the rest of the team that is joining me today for the webinar. We have Joe Law, who is in our Minnesota office as well.
Good
Joe
morning, good afternoon all.
is our lead engineer in the US. He manages the service and tech support areas for TMS. He will be leading the webinar today. On the commercial side of the team, we have John Leadham, US research commercial, as well as Canada, clinical and commercial, and supporting some of our international distributors. Bill Netchai, US clinical team, running the US clinical sales team and growing that team and that business. Darren Rose, managing international distributors, as well as direct sales in the UK. And Lindy Bostic, last but certainly not least, our intrepid tech support, installation, and training lead. So thank you all for joining me on the webinar today. And we're going to kick it over to you, Joe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. Good afternoon or good morning, all. Again, my name is Joe, the lead engineer for North America. I'm based here in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. And the device I have behind me is the H3 Pro StimGuide. I'm going to go through a workflow with you guys today. I'm going to show you a hardware overview, a software overview, and then we'll go through the workflow and we'll show the fundamentals of the device. So first of all, let's jump straight in with the hardware here, and I won't go into too much detail. I'll just keep an overview here. So the main portion of the system down here, what we call the mainframe and the PSU, this provides the energy to our coils to produce that magnetic field. And then this unit on top is our customized PC. It is Windows based and it runs the applications and the software. And then more importantly, it actually has the ability to connect EMG electrodes. This certainly helps us when we're doing our mappings and our assessments during our TMS workflow. And I'll hopefully be able to demonstrate that momentarily and show you how that works. I move this back up. This here is our treatment coil for the system. Something nice about the Magstim device, especially in the clinical world, is if you're looking to do MDD, OCD, adolescence, anxious depression, it only requires this one treatment coil. You do not need to purchase additional coils off us to do those additional indications. You can do them all with this device here. It doesn't require additional coils for that. While I'm on the topic of coils, I do want to also show you this other coil that is provided with the device. But this is purely for the assessments, for the MT determinations. If you would like to do your mappings with the treatment coil, that is completely fine. But we give you another option, which is the mapping coil, which is much smaller. It's much lighter. It's much easier to find those intricate locations on the patient's scalp. But more importantly, it's fully remote control. So you never actually have to leave your patient's head to interact with the screen. You can do all of those adjustments from the actual remote on the coil itself. These tracking devices you're seeing here, I'll explain them a little bit later on, but these are actually part of our navigation system and helps the system determine where these coils and where the patient's head is in space at all times. Okay, moving forward to the chair. This is a motorized and remote control chair. Just to give you an idea of all the different options, you can set the chair. Any sort of position you can possibly think of, this chair will usually get to that location, which is ideal for TMS and treating your patients. And it comes with the Magstim headrest and the Magstim cheek rest, which I'll show you in a moment. We don't use the traditional headrest, and that's by design. A lot of headrests out there will cover the back of your patient's head, making it difficult to do assessments if you do want to put the headrest there. So this is kind of a half neck, half headrest, which cups the back of that patient's head, and it also wraps around the patient's head, preventing as much movement as possible. And then if I switch my camera here, you'll also see what we call the cheek or the temple rest, and that stops your patient from shying away from the coil. And all of that is can be customized and modified depending on what indication or treatment you're looking to do. And then finally, on the hardware side, you can see up here, there is our camera. We call it a camera, but it is actually an infrared sensor. It's only looking for infrared light. It can't see you and it can't see your patients. Again, it's looking for these reflective spheres, which we call trackers, which are placed throughout the system. Really important about the navigation device. It is our neuronavigation device. It doesn't require an MRI. There's no MRI required for this neuronavigation. It can all be done with the patient on that day without the MRIs. So I'm going to flip to this screen behind me so you can see this a little bit better. So when you first turn on the system, you will need to log in, which I've already put my credentials in. The beauty of this is every one of your users will have their own unique credentials to log in. That way you've got traceability. You'll be able to see exactly what technician or treater has treated what patient. And you can even use these credentials to log into a web-based portal on any desktop or laptop as long as you have credentials. When you first sign in, you will be greeted with a list of your active patients. Don't worry too much about HIPAA here. This is just my fake engineering data, but this would usually be your active patients. If I click on one of these so you can get a feel for the overview or a patient's profile, I'm actually going to click on myself here as a patient. So let's click on myself. And then this is the patient's profile. So on the left-hand side, you can see the general patient details. This is all that's really required to actually set up a profile. So first name, last name, date of birth, etc. What you're going to be interested in the majority time is this middle column here, which is the treatment plan summary. Something really nice about this system is it does allow you to set up treatment plans, patient profiles. It's not just a TMS controller. So what I mean by that is you can see the patient's treatment plan here is currently being treated for MDD. They've had 4 of their 36 treatments, when they were last treated, who they were last treated by, and their current MT level. If nobody is aware, MT does stand for motor threshold. A good way of thinking about it is dosage requirement, how much magnetic field we need to give to that patient. And I'll show you momentarily how we actually determine that. These 3 buttons down here will always be your workflow. So when a patient comes in for the first time to start their TMS journey, you'll want to do a new MT determination. You may also hear this being called a mapping or an assessment. They mean exactly the same thing. Once you've done that, you can then build a treatment plan for that patient, which essentially is telling the system what treatment you want to give to your patient, where on the scalp you want to give it to them, and how many treatments you want to give to them. So then the system knows going forward, every time that patient comes in and sits in the chair, the system knows exactly what it needs to give and provide to that patient. It doesn't require you to manually input that data every single time. And then finally, for every single treatment, it's a case of the treater or technician actually running the treatment. And again, I'll show you that momentarily when we go through the workflow in a minute. The last thing I do want to show you is the kind of traceability aspect of this system. So for example, if I click this treatment history tab at the top here, it will show you all of the treatments that this patient has ever had. It'll show you what the treatment was, who performed the treatment, what device it was done on, what the indication was. You can even click on any one of these treatments, like so. It will show you if there are any intensity changes during that treatment and when they occurred. So what I'm trying to just get through here is how much traceability is on this device. Generally speaking, any data you could possibly think of that could be recorded on a TMS device, this device generally does it. So treatment history, it'll also do the same for MT history. If you've done more than one mapping on a patient, it'll actually show you that history as well. Okay, let's actually jump into a workflow and show you how this device actually does the TMS workflow. So the first thing we need to do is add a new patient to the device, which you do from the main screen. You can also add the new patient from your desktop or laptop using the cloud as well if you're not in front of the system at the time. So let's add a new patient. I'll add myself in here. So first name, last name, date of birth. The only thing that has to be unique is the patient's ID. What I usually suggest to clinics is whatever the patient's ID is in your EHR or EMR system, match it on here. The reason why I say that is the cloud software does allow you to export PDF reports of your patient's treatment. You can do reports of individual treatments, or you can do a report of the entire treatment plan. What's nice about that is you can then upload those PDF to your patient's charts. That's saving you then from having to manually enter that data every single time. Okay, so I've set myself up in the system. You can see my general patient details on the left, but again, the treatment plan summary is completely empty and I can't do the bottom 2 workflows because again, this is a brand new patient. I do have to do a new MT determination. So let's tap new MT determination. It's going to ask you to confirm the date of birth to make sure you've got the correct patient in the chair. And this is where the navigation system now kicks into place. So what we've tried doing here is ensuring a precise and accurate and consistent treatment throughout all of the treatments. So again, for the longest time, TMS has been done with these fabric caps, which many patients have had huge success with. The only concerns with the fabric cap is how do you place that fabric cap on a patient's head consistently in the same place for every single treatment? It is very difficult to do so. And for example, when patients even small things like changes their hairstyle, it manipulates those markings on the cap. And also once you place the coil on the cap over these markings, it's very difficult to know if that patient moves during the treatment because the coil is now covering the markings. With this device, no caps are required, not for the mapping stage and not for any of the treatments. So how do we do it? So we first we stick one of these reusable head trackers on your patient's forehead. You can put it anywhere on the forehead in any orientation you like, because remember, our camera can't see the patient and it can't see anything else other than those trackers. So it still doesn't know where my patient's head is in space. So as you can see on the screen on the right-hand side, it wants to know where certain anatomical landmarks are of your patient. So the first one it wants to know is, where is the patient's nasion located? So using this pointer tool, I'm going to point to the nasion to tell the system where it is. The idea is you place the pointer on that location and then you tell the system at that time. We've actually upgraded our pointer tool from previous systems. There used to be a manual pointer tool and you'd have to interact with the screen. We listened to the clinics and their feedback saying that that can sometimes be difficult. We've now actually added a Bluetooth pointer. You don't have to interact with the screen at all. You can press the green button to confirm the location. So let's point to the nasion and press the green button. We've registered the nasion. We're then going to do the left preauricular. We're then going to do the right preauricular. Oh, sorry, the camera couldn't see that. Sorry, let's do that again. There we go. And then a rough estimate of the top of the head, or the CZ. The first three you do are extremely important. You need to be doing those precisely. The final one is just to ensure that that coil, the height of that patient's head is as accurate as possible. Not as important as the first three. But what you'll notice now is as I move that pointer next to my patient's head, you can see it in real time on the screen. So the idea is now the system can see the patient and the coils in relation to the coils in real time at all times. Usually you would click next down the bottom here and actually start the workflow. But before I move on, I do want to show you one other feature here. There is a toggle in the top left here that if I turn it on, you will now see an abundance of different anatomical landmarks on that patient's head. So the system can guide you to additional landmarks. Again, this is really helpful if you're trying to do maybe some research or off-label, anything of that nature. You can use that to guide you. If there's something that isn't here by default that you need, that is okay. You can actually use the additional landmark and add your own locations, and then it will save going forward those locations. So let's actually start the mapping process. So we'll go forward to the next screen. There's only two things I want you to note here. Is on the right-hand side, again, it's showing me that patient's head. It's actually also showing me the C3 location. That is a guide we're going to use to find the empty hotspot on the patient's motor strip. So for MDD, the first thing we need to do is find the location on the motor strip that is going to cause my patient's thumb to move, okay? Again, usually if you were using some traditional methods, it would require you to make a few measurements to give you that C3 location. This system will do it for you, so there's no measurements required. And then also in this center column here, what I want to note is every time I deliver a pulse, it's going to record that as a line of data in here. So you'll know when I deliver a pulse because you'll see it be captured in this screen. So how does the navigation system help us? So what you'll notice is when I place this mapping coil on my patient's head, you can see it in real time on the screen. So now I know I need to search around this area to try find a thumb twitch for my patient. So what's really nice here is I don't need to make markings on any caps or anything like that, because every time I deliver a pulse, the system is going to capture that data and show exactly where that coil is during that time. So for example, if I click on any of my previous pulses, you'll notice the system will show me exactly where that coil was during that particular pulse. So it's a really nice feature to have, because let's say, for example, the first pulse we delivered was the best and the strongest thumb twitch we could find. I can always click back on that thumb twitch, that pulse. It will show me where that coil was. That's all I need to do is marry those two ghost icons back up, and I'm roughly in the same place as I was when I delivered that pulse. So this feature does speed up your mappings because it allows you to get back to locations that usually you wouldn't be able to find before. I'm going to try demonstrate our EMG feature and actually show you what a mapping tends to look like. I do have my EMG leads plugged in at the moment, so I am seeing a little bit of artifacts here, but they're not actually connected to my thumb at the moment. So this here, what you can see, these waveforms are the EMG responses from those electrodes. So I'll try my best to demonstrate this. I put myself on the spot a little bit, but I'm sure I can get the idea. So I'm going to turn my system up quite a bit to 80%, just so it makes it a little bit easier for me to find my own MT. response. So what I've done is I've connected some EMG electrodes in the front of my system here. Apologies, I just seem to have got them tangled. Bear with me. A big tip here when using these electrodes, because they are surface electrodes and they are stuck to your patient's hand or whatever motor response you're looking for, a very good tip is to make sure that you wipe your patient's hand down with some sort of isopropanol alcohol. Any lotion on the skin, any oil or dead skin will cause some artifacts on any EMG reading. So it's very important you do wipe your patient's hand down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a ground reference to the back of my hand like so. I'm then going to put the positive on the first crease of my thumb like so, and then I'm going to put the negative on the kind of fatty part of the hand, the fatty tissue of the hand like so. Again, depending on what indication you're doing, is going to determine where you need to place these. To give you an example, if you're going to do OCD, you're going to be looking for a leg or a foot twitch. You're going to want to put these on the patient's leg or the patient's foot. Okay, so I'll try my best now to place this coil on my motor strip and start finding some pulses. So I'll try my best to do this. Again, quite difficult on your own, but I'm sure we can get this working. So if I start delivering pulses, you'll notice my entire hand twitches with every single pulse. Again, I'm at quite a high intensity here, hence why my entire hand is moving. When you start bringing the intensity down, you should be able to elicit it to just the thumb twitch itself or maybe a pointer finger. But just to kind of show you how this EMG works, if I switch back to the screen, you can now see a different waveform here. So within the 50 milliseconds, you can see now there's a huge delta spike here, sine wave, and that's with every single one here. If I show you any previous pulses that I did, if I then try fire the coil into the air and just keep my hand extremely still, what you'll notice is now there's just some ever so slight artifacts that's being picked up there. A huge difference between actually seeing a response and no response at all. So again, just to show you that, if I go back to one where I did respond, there's a huge sine wave here. So what I'm getting at here is we've given you another feature. So instead of just having to use the traditional visual thumb twitch method or any motor response visual method, you have an addition of here now of using the EMG feature. How does it benefit you? Well, there are a couple of benefits here. So the main one is what we've noticed is if you've got a patient that has an extremely high MT response, maybe they're just not twitching as well as the average patient. This allows you to sometimes capture those responses and allows you to bring their motor threshold lower than you've ever been able to bring it before. Usually it can be up to about 11%. What I usually suggest is if you've got a patient in the chair that's responding really well and well within the average MT, you may not need the EMGs. If you're struggling, the patient is not responding well to the actual response, the motor responses, then the EMGs will certainly help you out. Bringing it down, the dosage, the magnetic field down to your patient, down for your patient, is going to provide much more comfort for that treatment. If we're not having to stimulate them with such a high intensity, it's going to be much more comfortable for that patient. And some of these treatments can be up to 20, 35 minutes. You want to make sure that they are as comfortable as possible. So any reduction in their dosage is going to be beneficial for them and yourselves. Okay, so I'm just going to unplug those EMGs now because we don't generally need them again. So I'll just unplug them so we're not getting any artifact. And actually show you the next part of the workflow. So again, I'm not going to be able to perform a MT assessment here because unfortunately my patient is a mannequin's head. But for the sake of this demo, let's deliver a pulse on my patient's head and we will pretend that this is the perfect location with the perfect intensity and we're happy to move on. Usually now you would have to try and make some markings on the cap and then do some measurements to determine where the treatment target is. That's not required on this system. You can register the pulse to tell the system that this is the true MT hotspot that we found and click next. It will then do the measurements for us and determine where the patient's treatment target is. So what you'll notice on the next screen here is this yellow cylinder. This yellow cylinder is the system showing me where the patient's treatment target is. Why is it a yellow cylinder? The cylinder is the tolerance. So anything inside that yellow cylinder is deemed an acceptable tolerance, and thus anything outside is unacceptable. that's actually customizable to you. So if you want to work within, say, a 1 millimeter tolerance, that's fine, but that yellow cylinder is going to be smaller and at a 1 millimeter diameter. So that's all it wants me to do for the final part of my mapping, is deliver a single pulse on the patient's treatment target. So what you'll notice when I talk about the yellow cylinder, making sure I'm within tolerance, once I go inside that yellow cylinder, what you'll notice is it goes green on the screen to tell me I'm within the tolerance set by the clinic. I just need to ensure that my coil is roughly at a 45-degree angle and it's tangential to my patient's head. And deliver the final pulse and move the coil away. And you notice it remains on the screen. So actually, this is the most important part of the entire workflow. And why? Well, for the next 36 sessions, this system is now going to guide your technician or treater to place this treatment coil in not only the yellow cylinder, but exactly what you just did there on the patient's head as the medical professional. So what I mean by that is the distance, the contact, the rotation, the tilt, and the yaw all must match what was done by the medical professional. Otherwise, it's going to be considered as a missed pulse. So again, this system takes away all of the guesswork with regards to the orientation or anything of that nature, and ensure that every treatment, regardless of what technician, is placed exactly the same throughout all 36 treatments or whatever, however many treatments you are looking to do. So you can do this as many times as you want, but just make sure once you have done it, you are happy and it is correct. Then I'm going to click register. What this is going to do is save this really important location to my patient's profile and allow me to select it when I'm building my treatment plan. So let's press save and close. That is the mapping completed. For anybody that's unfamiliar with the workflow of TMS, here in the US, usually we only do one mapping on day one, and then you carry on and just do the actual 36 treatments. There are times where you do require remappings. Maybe your patient isn't responding well to the TMS. Maybe they've had a change in prescription medications, especially benzos. Things like that would require you to maybe do a remapping, but often the time it's only required once. So now I've done my mapping. Before I can actually start my treatment, I just need to build a new treatment plan. So let's open up the new treatment plan. I'll close this window so you can see it a little bit better. You've got two options here. You've got combined treatment templates. I won't go into too much detail, but this actually allows you to build multiple indications into one treatment plan if you are going to treat a patient with more than one indication. But for the sake of this demo, let's just stick with individual treatment templates. If I hit the drop down here, it'll give us already defaulted protocols or treatments in the list. So these first four here are FDA approved and actually defaulted with the system. You can see you've got intermittent theta burst, which is a just over 3-minute MDD protocol. You've got the original RTMS 37-minute MDD protocol and the 18-minute or just over 18-minute MDD protocol. There's also the OCD treatment there as well. There's a plus symbol in the top right-hand side that when you click on allows you to add your own complete custom protocol. So you're not just limited to what we provide to you by default. You can add any protocol in here that you like, and then you can give it a name and add it to your default list. And that's what you can see below these four here are just my custom ones that I've added to the system. So for the sake of this demo, let's select ITBS because that's by far the quickest treatment of them all. So ITBS for my patient. And then this is the treatment plan screen. So again, like I said earlier, it wants to know what treatment you want to give to your patient. It wants to know where do you want to give the treatment to the patient. Well, that really important pulse that I did at the end of my mapping now lives in this drop-down list. So if I hit the drop-down, there's the target that I saved with the date and time that I performed it. And then lastly, how many treatments you want to give to your patient. So it currently says 36 because I selected an MDD protocol, and that's the default standard that's the clinical standard for MDD. For example, if I'd have selected an OCD workflow, this would have defaulted to 29. So it does assist you with those treatments as well. But you can change, add and remove treatments as and when you want. And that's the treatment plan done. So finally, from this point forward, it's just a case of the actual technician running the treatment itself. So the first thing they're going to do is click on Run Treatment. It's going to ask you here, do you want to reuse the existing landmarks? So what this is asking me is, really asking me is, has the head reference moved since you last did your anatomical landmarks? And what I mean by that is, if your patient takes this head tracker off, you would need to do the landmarks again, because there's no way you'd be able to stick that head tracker back in the same location with the same orientation. That's not a problem. If it comes off, or when it's the next day and you go to stick it back on, you can put it in any orientation, in any location on the forehead, but it does then require you to do these anatomical landmarks to ensure we're back within that millimeter precise treatment and location and using that navigation. So let's go back to this, sorry. Okay, so my patient hasn't moved their head tracker. It still remains in the same place, so we're going to use the existing. Confirm the date of birth again to make sure you've got the correct patient in the chair. And then it's going to take us to the treatment screen. So it's going to be a little bit similar to what you've seen at the end of the mapping. So what you'll notice is, again, is this yellow cylinder, which is going to guide your technician to place the treatment coil in the right location with the correct contact. But that's not good enough. We also want to ensure that the orientation of our coil is also correct and matched what was done by the medical professional. And that's what the addition of this gimbal in the bottom right-hand side does. I'll try my best to explain this. It'll make a little bit more sense when I show you, so bear with me. But this kind of bat icon you can see inside this gimbal needs to be inside this stationary red line to be within tolerance. So if I grab my coil and just discuss the orientation first, if I unlock everything and start moving that coil around, what you'll notice is that bat icon is also moving with my coil. It represents the coil. If I place my coil in the perfect orientation so you can see what we're aiming for, that there is kind of what we're aiming for. Just to give you an example, if I start rotating my coil, you'll notice the bat wings will also rotate and go out of tolerance, like so. If I tilt my coil up and down, you'll notice the circle will go up and down and out of tolerance. And that's the same if I tilt it left and right. The circle will go left and right and out of tolerance. So now I've got the perfect orientation. I just need to place my coil in the right location. So let's keep this orientation and take the coil to my patient's head, place it inside that yellow cylinder, and now everything has gone green. I can now lock that coil up in space, like so. Let's tidy it up a little bit. Again, I'm within millimeters here, so everything needs to be very precise. But that green box around the outside is the key here, because that's telling me that all 5 parameters are within tolerance. If any of those 5 parameters go out of tolerance, I will lose that green box, and I'll technically be missing pulses from the treatment location. So let's arm the system with the orange button down the bottom. It takes us through to the control screen. There's nothing too much you can do here apart from reduce the patient's intensity. Why would we want to do this? Well, if you haven't done TMS before, look, your patient's going to be a little bit anxious about what's to happen. They've never had TMS before. This allows you to actually dial the dosage down. You can't go above what was set by the medical professional during the treatment plan, like I can show you, but you can reduce it. What we usually suggest is for the first few sessions of TMS, slowly increase that intensity and get your patient used to that TMS sensation. So let's start the treatment with the green button. That's all the technician needs to do now, is ensure that this stays within the green as much as physically possible. So a huge benefit of this system is using any other traditional method or manual method, it requires you to constantly look at the patient and see if that coil is still in the correct location based on the patient's head. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to simulate patient movement by pushing this mannequin's head out the way. So I'll just let it finish a train. And now I'll push that mannequin's head out the way. We can see what happens on the screen. We lose the green box. We get a banner at the top of the screen that is constantly beeping at me and telling me it needs attention. It's telling me that the coil is out of position and I need to place the coil back in the correct location. What I should do is pause the treatment with the red button in the bottom right-hand side, like so. I should place the coil back within the correct location in the correct tolerance. Admittedly, for this demo, I'm going to let go of this mannequin's head. It'll probably fall back where it was before I pushed it, which it does. That wouldn't usually happen with a patient. And then you can carry on and resume your treatment. So to give you a little bit of background on this, for the longest time in clinical TMS, the feedback we've had is people heading the TMS practice wants to know exactly how well each treatment has gone. Well, unfortunately, using manual methods, the only way you'd be able to determine that is if you stood here and watched every single treatment happen. With this device, every pulse is recorded, whether it's on target or off target. And that is actually going to affect the treatment score that's given to you at the end, which again is saved to my profile and the patient's profile. So to give you a little bit of an example of that, what I'm going to do is, again, a bit of an extreme example, but I'm sure you can appreciate what I'm trying to achieve. We've got about a minute and a half left of the treatment. I'm actually going to move the coil away from my patient's head. And for the final minute and a half, I'm going to completely ignore the beeping on this system and the banners. It's going to constantly call out for my attention and tell me that, look, you're not treating within the tolerance. But I'm going to simulate a poor treatment to show you exactly how that affects the treatment score at the end. So we're almost at the end of the workflow here, but while that dials down and finishes the treatment, just a couple of other things that might be very important to know. This system is not a pay-per-use device, so it doesn't require you to pay the manufacturer, $50, $60, $70 every time you treat a patient. We never have been pay-per-use. We never will be pay-per-use. And then for full transparency, consumables, there are medical devices out there that consider themselves non-pay-per-use, but then will sting you with high-cost consumables. So for full transparency here, consumables required for this device is EMG electrode to stick these reusable head trackers on your patient's head. You just clip these to the back of your head tracker, stick it to the patient's head. You can then throw those inexpensive EMG, EKG electrodes away. And then finally, if you do want to use the EMG feature during your mappings or your assessments, you will also need to purchase some EMG, EKG electrode leads. But those are the only consumables required for this device behind me. So again, really important. Again, I talked earlier about the cloud software. I won't go into a huge amount of detail here, but there's an abundance of additional features with the cloud software. So it allows you to do analytics. It allows you to do look at all the data and more on your device. You can even add stuff like PHQ-9 scores, which gives you even further analytics again. Okay. So just to finish off here, this is my treatment score. Again, the end of the treatment, it gives me the treatment score. You can see I had a pretty terrible score of 45%. It gives me a breakdown as to why it was so bad, how it was my distance that really was the worst, which was 45. And actually the orientation of the car was perfect, but it's irrelevant because all four need to be correct. More importantly here, it gives you that feedback that 330 pulses of my 600 pulse treatment were not delivered within the acceptable tolerance set by the clinic. So this is really important because using traditional methods or manual methods, you would never get that feedback. So you would unknowingly know that you've just missed 330 pulses. You would have your patient leave the clinic right now after missing almost half of their pulses. This system gives you that feedback, but additionally at the bottom here, it actually allows you to dial up to match those missed pulses. So you can see here 330 and 330. You can click the check mark. It allows your technician to go back into the treatment screen and deliver those additional pulses that were missed during the treatment. So again, this is really important. This is something we've added to the system. It's to try and ensure that your patients are getting as much of the treatment as physically possible. For full transparency, you get one opportunity at the end of every single treatment for missed pulses, but you can't keep trying over and over again. What I mean by that is if you miss the missed pulses after the treatment, you can't keep trying. You get one opportunity at the end. But again, making sure that that patient gets as much of the treatment as physically possible. I think that's my entire workflow. I appreciate everybody staying with me.
Thank you,
Mark,
Joe.
I'll hand it back over to
You every time you get it's fantastic. And
I
just so
appreciate
people
it.
know, now you've been with Magstim for a number of years. In fact, you originally you've built these before.
Yeah, I've worn a lot of caps. I've been here 13, maybe even 14 years now. Started off in the UK. I've gone through testing, engineering. TMS has been very much my lifetime career so far. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, again, we appreciate all you do to share the knowledge and the technical ability of things. Okay, we have had some questions coming in, and we've got a number of them. We're going to try to get to as many as we can here quickly for those we can't get to, we will respond. As long as you didn't put the questions in as anonymous, then I can respond later. So please go on. All right, couple of easy ones to begin with. I have a practice. Oh, I have somebody who wants to know how easy it is for their clinician to adjust the coil treatment height. And I think they're just questioning of how hard it is to move or easy it is to move that coil, for people of
Great.
different heights, right?
Yeah, great question. I could try my best to show you this without putting my back to you. If I try to do this, maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so you've got a couple of options here. First of all, obviously the chair is completely customizable, so you can go up and down with the chair if you've got a patient that's taller or shorter. But to go over the arms, what you can do is on the back of this arm, it actually allows you to slide the whole arm down. So if I show you, you can see here on the back that it slides down. So it allows you to go pretty low here if you want to work at this height. Also then to talk about the coil itself and the weight. So above me here, I'm sorry, you can't see that very well, but there is a supporting arm. So this up here is the supporting arm. For example, if I press the pedal on the floor that unlocks this arm, it allows you to swing it back and forth like so, which is fairly weightless. And then when you let go of that pedal, it locks this top arm to stop it moving. And then also you can see this black cord down here. It allows you to it's kind of like our anti-gravity, if you will, our zero gravity arm, because it allows you to move the coil wherever you want without actually having to hold the weight of that coil. So again, fairly easy. Yeah, you can use a lot of these things to your advantage. So yeah, that's kind of how the arm works.
Thank you for
Okay.
answering that. We've had some more that have come in as well. And Lindy, you're here with us, correct? A question for you about how to make the practices, because you're working with practices all over. How do you make the patients feel comfortable as they are coming in for treatment?
There's a lot of things you can do. They're coming every day. They need to feel like they're welcome. You transform that office into something kind of homey, something where they're going to enjoy spending their time. I see a lot of practices putting up televisions, even if they're not putting on, media or anything. It could be just like calming waterfalls or playing music, things that will relax people and take their focus off of what's going on. Because if they're sitting there for 20 minutes, you want them to be as still as possible. And you want them to be able to sit through the treatment so you don't have to add so many pulses at the end. The other thing that's a huge component is finding the right technicians for your group. Technicians can make or break your program. People who are caring, who are patient, who are kind, and engage with the patients. Those are huge game changers for TMS programs.
Fantastic. Appreciate your response on that. Couple more. This one I'm going to ask both Bill and Darren because somebody wants to know how long, I'm reading the question, how long it takes to get a system sort of up and running. And so we're going to have to appeal globally here. So from the point of bringing your system in to actually starting to treat patients, how long does that timeline look like for both, here in North America, and this is, I guess, for John and Bill, and as well as for Darren for the UK? What does the timeline look like on that kind of
I think Lindy can help answer that question because once the equipment arrives, then she arranges everything. So Lindy, can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. For North America, we can usually be there within 2 to 3 weeks of just delivery, depending on the time of year, and sometimes faster. We have people all over the country that come out and install and train you and provide that support. So we work with the operations team once we know delivery is established and what works for you. We have also people that will receive delivery of the device and then they don't want installation training till later. So there's some flexibility there.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And to elaborate a little bit more, basically what happens is Lindy and one of her team members comes in, they install the system, they assemble the system that morning. We make sure that everything is delivered properly, nothing is damaged. That gives us time just in case something does happen from the delivery standpoint. And secondly, they test it, they make sure the system is running properly, and then that afternoon, we typically can start training immediately.
Fantastic. Appreciate that. We have had a number of different questions. I'm going to invite John Leadham in here as well with me, as we're going to try to get to as many of these as we can. Um, and John is based in Canada. So that's going to give his background on that system as well. We talked a little bit about the coil performance and things like that, but there's some questions about the coils being liquid cooled or air cooled, and I'll defer to anybody in the team who wants to jump in here. But we've made a commitment to use the air cooled coils because of the performance. And I'll defer to maybe Joe. You want to comment about the air cooled coils?
I can certainly comment. Yeah, of course. So, for example, our coil is air-cooled. It runs on an algorithm, so the fans aren't running full all the time. It works on depending on how the ambient temperature of the room is and the temperature of the coil. So as the coil gets hotter, those fans kick in and get quicker to make sure that that coil doesn't overheat. And that is the key here, is the overheating aspect. So this coil here can do accelerated intermittent theta burst. And what I mean by that is almost back-to-back ITBS. Again, when you're doing ITBS, it doesn't require you to modify that protocol. It still remains at that 3 minutes, 16 seconds, regardless where you are in the intensity. Something else on another note is with the air-cooled coil, it's very much just plug and play. So if it does require a replacement or a service or anything of that nature, you can remove those coils within a matter of minutes, whether you want to swap it out or anything of that nature. It doesn't require, any vast toolage or cooling systems to do that.
It's
Fantastic.
also economical. We really try to design and build our equipment and everything with the customer in mind. We want to deliver value for the money. So it's very economic coil. There is no ongoing maintenance required for this coil. The other thing I personally love about it is it's environmentally friendly. There's no liquid waste to be dumped and added into the environment.
Fantastic.
Just to add a little bit to that as well. I run into a lot of places that are concerned about the weight of liquid filled coils. There are technicians having some repetitive strain injuries and things like that. Not only is this coil lighter, but it is also supported. As you can see right beside Joe's head there, it is supported so that it takes the weight off that coil when you're using it. So it becomes quite an effective coil. Also, that air film coil, as someone mentioned, maintenance-wise, does not need maintenance. That coil will run 40 million pulses compared to most liquid coils, cooled coils that are in that 20 million pulse range. So if you look at the economics of that, you're looking at, if you were doing 20 theta burst studies or treatments a day and running 261 days a year, so you're not running on weekends, that coil is going to last you almost 4.5 years of use before it needs to be replaced, which is a good long run, and the cost savings is significant for the long-term use of that machine.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, John. Question, what are the 4 parameters for correct treatment? Joe Law, it's tilt, axis, distance. Help me out.
Yeah, great question. So just to give you an idea, I'll try my best to show you as well if I can. So if I use this coil as a representation, so the 4 parameters, contact, distance, tilt, and rotation. So for example, distance is on the flat plane. So anywhere on the scalp is considered distance. Then contact is the axis away from the head. So obviously contact needs to be directly on the patient's head. As you move away, that contact then goes out of tolerance. You then have rotation, which in my opinion is probably the least important, only because that magnetic field does remain in the same place. But be aware that magnetic field does have efficacy on the brain depending on what angle it is. So it is still important, but I do call it the least. And then finally, tilt. So this is actually one of the more important, because tilt obviously is where that magnetic field is going to then be delivered in the brain. What I mean by tilt is this in every angle. So what I mean by that is it's not just this tilt, but it's also this tilt. So, and anything in between. So again, distance, contact, rotation, and then tilt in any direction of that nature. I hope that's what they were asking. But yeah, that's those four parameters.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Good, good one. We have a question from somebody asking about where where's the database installed, and is that connected to the stimulator, and do they need an internet connection? I think it's going to vary by country how we do, but
It,
the
it
internet
does vary
template.
by
Yeah,
geographic region, but there is no need to have an internet connection. We can run these as standalone systems as well.
And
fantastic.
just to add a little bit more to that as well is, even if you are not a standalone and you do want to do that online feature, it's still, even though it's an online device, it's still not dependent on that online. What I mean by that is when you're running treatments and doing those protocols, it's all done within the system locally. The cloud is actually only used to back up that data and allow you to access it on the actual web portal. So the really important thing is here is even if you are a cloud device or an online device, if you're in the middle of treatment or you lose internet connection that day or for the entire week, you can still use your system without relying on that internet connection. So again, really important. It doesn't require it even when it is an online system.
Great, great. Quick question about training and global support. The system comes with, I'll defer to Lindy on this, and then Marani, maybe you can help me with global as well. But of course, we're going to provide the training to get your system up and running. And that's going to apply on our global level as well, correct?
Absolutely. Lindy, do you want to talk about the installation and training
Sure.
routine that we follow? And this really is applicable worldwide.
So you will be assigned a trainer, and that's somebody you can reach out to even after the fact you've had your installation and training done. That person will come to your site. They'll install your device. They'll make sure everything's up and running fine. They'll remove all the trash and debris. And then they spend the next couple of days with you, hands-on guided training. We'll talk clinically about TMS, identifying patients. We'll talk about contraindications, indications, and then we'll really work hard to make you comfortable on that machine. So when we leave there, you may not remember everything, right? It's a couple of days of training, but we're planting that seed so you can move forward. And then we leave you with, the manuals, we leave you with videos. And again, you also have our information that you can reach out to us. And there's several of us. So if somebody's not available at that moment, there's other people that you can reach out to as well on the clinical side of things.
And we go in person anywhere in the world. We just had an installer trainer come back from Indonesia recently. Middle East is pretty typical for us and easy. And Europe, North America, South America, we will go anywhere to make
Fantastic.
sure that the machine is installed and you're comfortable once we're done training.
Fantastic. And quick note, we do manufacture our own technology for those who have asked, somebody asked earlier, and this is all made in our UK headquarters and has been there for a long time. So we stand behind everything that we make because we're all uh, committed to your clinical programs.
You
Question
bring
about
up, so, sorry, Mark, just to add on that, you bring up a great point. We do manufacture, engineer in the UK, but for anybody on the line who's North America, we do have our headquarters here in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities. And that stocks all of our devices and also has our service center. So, it doesn't require you to order from the UK or have service from the UK. It is all done here in-house in Minneapolis itself for our North America customers.
question for you from me, Joe. When can I get my hands on to help replace some of the technology in the coil course? You're probably going to say no, you're the marketing guy, and I'm going to say I'm very handy, Joe, and someday I will be able to do the repair.
Sure.
Um, all right. Question. I'm a researcher. Can the system be used for research as well? I'll defer to John Leadham on this one because, yeah, we have people using the system for research, but we have other systems as well, correct, Joe?
Yes, well, the Horizon series is can be used for translational research quite easily. We have a beautiful sham coil design. It's actually a set of adapter cables. One is straight through, so that you use the same coil. It sounds the same. It feels the same. You switch the adapter. It sounds the same, looks the same, feels the same. But the right over the point of stimulation, it zeroes that out. So it is an extremely effective placebo coil. On the research side, oh, there's Joe showing these two adapter cables, and they look exactly the same too. On the research side, we have a large array of products. We have our Rapid series, which can go from a standard Rapid all the way up to what we call a Super Rapid Plus One. The Super Rapid Plus One would give you the highest theta burst capability of any system out there. And each one of our systems has a pulse intensity guarantee, so that every pulse is the same height. We don't have roll off or pulse decay, as it's called, regardless of the frequency we work at. We have single pulse systems, and we have paired pulse systems for interrogating different circuitry in the brain and looking at excitability as well.
Fantastic job.
Very short answer to what could have been an hour-long answer. Sorry.
And thank you for holding back. I just quick point. I do want to share quickly as we're kind of wrapping up here. I'm going to land the airplane as your airline pilot. We did just get clearance in the USA for the treatment of peripheral pain. And Ronnie, this is a big deal for us. So I want to invite you to comment on how we can work with practices to use the Rapid system for the treatment of pain.
Yeah, please reach into us. So as those of you in behavioral health know, people that have chronic pain, about 50%, maybe higher, also have depression. And we're never going to determine causality, but by treating both of them, we hopefully can ameliorate one or the other or both. Pain is something that is so pervasive, and our Rapid system now has been FDA cleared for the treatment of peripheral pain. Look in the new year for a new range of coils that will be able to be placed, on the joints, on the back, and wherever your patient is experiencing that chronic, intractable pain.
Fantastic. We're very excited about this, and we thank everyone who's responded positively to our announcement about that. So with that, we're at the top of the hour. I want everyone to know we appreciate you being here, and please reach in, visit Magstim.com, and know that we are here to support you. I want to thank my amazing colleagues and team, as I'm starting to lose my voice.
One final thought here, Mark. Anybody that is interested here today that wants a further demo, maybe in more depth, has questions for me, any technical, anything of that nature, please reach out. We're more than happy to come into something like this forum one-to-one, and we can actually go through what we've gone through together today. You can ask even more in-depth questions, and you can see the system in more in-depth as well. So please do not hesitate, reach out, and we'll happly do that.
You can get all of our contact information, if it's not in the Zoom link you got, from Mark, and Mark is marksavar@welcony.com.
That's me, or marketing@magstim.com. I get them both because I'm honored to have two emails, Ronnie. So, all right, I'm going to thank everyone and appreciate all you do. Have a great rest of your week. Please reach in, and thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more. We're going to be doing these more ongoing webinars.